Alright, in this video we're going to be doing some revision of multiplication and division of fractions. So to start off with, let's talk about multiplication. This operation is very easy because all we need to do is we take the two numbers, so we multiply the numerators together and then we multiply the denominators together, and that's pretty much it. So this is going to be 3 on 14, so that's very easy. Let's do it with this one. We have 2 times 13, that's 26. And then 5 times 40, that's going to be 200. Now we can divide this by each one by 2, so that becomes 13 on 100. Now for this one, we have 3 times 10, that's 30. 8 times 5, that's 40. And we can cancel out 1 0, so that becomes 3 on 4. So whenever you have extra zeros like that, you can pretty much just cancel them out and then simplify the fraction, as we just did here. And another thing that you would have noticed is that this 10 on 5 actually simplifies to 2, so we could have easily written this as 3 on 8 times 2. So when you have something like this, it is implied that the 2 is on 1 because it is a whole number, and then basically you would have 3 times 2, that's 6, and then 8 times 1. Another thing that you would have, you could use is the fact that if you have 2 on 8, that simplifies to 1 on 4 because 8 is a multiple of 2. So we could also write this as 3 times 2 on 8. So we're essentially just moving the denominator around because multiplication allows us to do that. And then this is the same as 3 times 1 on 4, which becomes 3 on 4. So there are many ways in which you can manipulate fractions around if they're multiplying each other. Now for this one, we could carry out the multiplication, so we could say 5 times 6 is 30, and then 6 times 5 is 30, so this is going to be 1. But another thing we could have done is notice the fact that we have this thing here. So if we have a 5 here and a 5 there, those two are going to cancel out because 5 over 5 is going to be 1, and then 6 over 6 is 1. So we could have just said that's going to be 1 because both the top and the bottom are going to be the same. Another way in which you can simplify fractions could be the following. So let's say you have something like 6 on, say, 5 times 2 on 6. So in this case, you notice that the 6 is repeated here and here, so you can cancel it out and you're left with 2 on 5. So there are many ways in which you can simplify fractions like that, and this is quite important because when we do the algebra part of this course, you're gonna have to be doing this a lot in order to simplify those calculations that you're doing. Now for division, it's a little bit different, but the concept is the same. So suppose you're dividing two fractions together like this. Now this is the same as writing 2, 3 over 1 on 4. And once again, there are two methods to do this. So the first method is you express the fraction like this, and then what you're going to do is you're going to multiply these two numbers here that are close to each other. So you multiply these two, and then you're going to multiply the numbers on the outside, so 2 times the 4. Now the numbers on the outside are going to go on the numerator of the new fraction, and the numbers on the inside are going to become the denominator. So we have 2 times 4, that's 8, and then 3 times 1 is 3, so that's going to be our answer. Another method we could use is we can actually change this by a multiplication sign by simply flipping around the numerator and denominator on the right fraction. So, or we can swap it around on this one, but essentially it's the same. So 2 on 3 divided by 1 on 4 is the same as writing 2 on 3 times 4 over 1, which is just 4, and then we have 8 on 3. We could also do it the other way, so we could just flip this one around, but we don't do both at the same time. We only swap around the numerator and denominator of the same fraction in just one of them. So we can also swap this one around. We could say 3 on 2 times 1 on 4, but then you see the problem here is that it would actually give us the opposite. So if you were to do that, you would actually have to basically swap over again. So in general, what we prefer is to just swap around the one on the right. That way you don't have to do the swapping around once again. Or you can just do this method, which is sometimes a lot quicker than this one. So let's do some examples with that. So let's say we have 5 on 7 divided by 6 on, let's do 5. Okay, so let's do the swapping method. So we're going to swap the two numbers on this one. 5 on 6, that's going to be 25. 7 times 6 is going to be 42. And these do not seem to have any common factors, so I guess that's the answer. Let's try it out using this method here. So we're going to write 5 on 7 here, divided by 6 on 5. So we're going to multiply these two and those two. So the outmost numbers become the numerator. So 25 and 7 times 6, that's 42. So same thing again. Let's do one last example. So let's say we have 6 on 3. Actually, let's do it an actual fraction. So 17 on 3 divided by minus 1 on 2. So this is a little bit more interesting because now we have introduced a negative fraction in here. So how is that going to change things? Well, essentially it's not really going to do much because we have a positive sign divided by a negative sign, which is going to be a negative number. So essentially what we can do is we can say, okay, so let's have 17 on 3 times, we're going to swap these ones around, but the negative sign is just going to stay the same. So we're going to have 2 on 1. And negative times positive, that becomes a negative. So now we have 17 times 2, that's 34. And then 3 times 1, that's 3. So that's going to be our final answer. And this is pretty much it. I find that multiplication and division of fractions is way easier than addition and subtraction. So division, multiplication, way easier because we can always do this direct thing. We only need to multiply numerator and denominator. For division, we can do multiplication simply by swapping around the numerator and denominator of the second fraction, so the one on the right hand side. If you swap the first one, remember you need to, whatever you get as a result, you need to swap it back again. So it's usually better to do this one. And in the next video, we're going to start talking about ratios and how that can be used in some practical scenarios.